Welcome back to the Amplified Action Podcast. My name is Jake. Andre is here with me as always, and today we are going to be talking about how do you harness your biases, and we have three practical steps in how you can do that. So, bias is something I think we talk about it a lot because it's one of the things that shapes our complete reality is your biases. Everything you do and everything you interact with runs through these filters in your brain. The two most common ones that I think we call out that kind of cover all of your biases, or at least in this realm of self growth, is going to be a confirmation bias. So you're always out there looking to confirm what you believe. You're never looking to necessarily by default prove yourself wrong. So if you hold some belief, you're going to be out in the world trying to prove that belief true unconsciously. And the other one's going to be attentional bias, which is very closely related, but like just to be very nuanced, it's what you pay attention to in the first place. So you may not even get the information in. So if I get conflicting information about a belief, my confirmation bias is going to lead me to say, well, that's probably not true because of X, Y, and Z. Whereas my attentional bias might just filter it out in the first place and I don't even consider it. So that's kind of like a foundation. And there's benefits to your biases, right? They're there, so we might as well use them to our advantage, right? But there's a very thin line between being overly positive or being very positive and being delusional. And that's kind of what we want to break down today. So yeah. Andre, do you have any thoughts to kick us off before we dive into the three steps?
Yeah, there's a lot to be said about being intentional about understanding and navigating biases, not just personally, but other people's biases too. And a lot of the world is playing upon you, they're not playing upon they're preying on your biases. That's why things have just been getting more and more extreme over time to make people very polarized, and it's super important to pay attention to this phenomena and make sure that you're feeding the right biases, and you're very aware of your biases and aware of other people's biases so you can intelligently navigate all of the different situations that are going to come up in life. And part of that is really understanding the power of these biases. And honestly, if you only understood attentional bias and confirmation bias, it's going to make it so that you'll be so much more multidimensional than the average person.
Absolutely. And that is the step one of our three steps to harnessing your bias is acknowledge that you have biases. Nobody on this planet does not. I mean, maybe the Dalai Lama, I don't know. Maybe there's somebody, but biases are just so built in to being human. It's just how the brain works. And you just have to accept that and acknowledge that. That is the first step to be able to using your biases to your advantage. So don't pretend that you're holier than thou and you see everything clearly and have no biases. That's the biggest mistake you can make.
Yeah, for sure. Like everyone has biases. There are inbuilt biases to being human. Like that's just part of how it works. Like the most easy to point to is the negativity bias. We just remember things that are negative. And it started with a survival bent, um, from you know millennia ago or whatever, and that's still in existence, and that's a huge part of how our other biases are built. Like that, they're all rooted in that survival instinct negative bias stuff. And since the environment has changed so much, we've just found different ways for the attentional bias thing to play out, and the negative bias to play out. So you cannot be on a pedestal here, because the fact that you are human means that you have at least a couple of these foundational biases towards negativity. And that's just a fact of being human. And as much as you want to pretend that it's not a part of your reality, it's just pretend.
Right. And I'll kick off step two with an example based on step one to tie these together. Biases, it's such a negative word. Like, I think we see this as a negative word. But step two here is to use the power of positive thinking, and you can use that on biases itself. Biases are your friends. Like, is your friend, like you just said, Andre. It helps us survive. It helped us evolve into where we're at. It helped us build this whole empire that we call human culture. And although some of them seem outdated now, like some of these biases seem outdated and they don't necessarily match reality, it is a tool that we have that we can use to our advantage. And the way we do that is by harnessing positive thinking to feed into those basic biases that we have. So we program the the software is running in our brain, like it has a task, the system is running, maybe is a better metaphor. The system is running, we just need to change the input that goes into that system, and we do that through positive thinking.
Yeah, like you could say that changing to a positive thinking mindset like kind of updates the firmware, and maybe habits are the software, right? Like there's all kinds of different ways that you can program your brain to better navigate the world. And that's the one of the best ways that you can get more out of life is shifting your thinking to be more positive. And we should probably like put something in the cards that links to the positive thinking episode, because I think that that will help to give more context to this part of the conversation. That's a deeper dive into the how to do the positive thinking. And when we take all of our biases and we kind of reshape them a little bit with the positive thinking, we get a better grasp of what is actually real instead of the 10x multiplier of negative thoughts are more powerful. So if we shift all of our thinking and our frameworks and our biases towards something that's more positive, we end up being able to better navigate the world because we can see the world for what it is. And I think it's pretty hard to stay stuck in like a delusional positivity. It's just people are too negative. They don't get stuck in the delusional positivity, which is what people think. People think, oh, that person's naive. That person is delusional. You're not going to stay there. You'll life will find a way to pop in and maybe pop you and make you think a little. It'll bring you back down a little bit, but then you run it through your positive bias again, and then you can see the world again, and you can navigate it better, right? So there's a ton of benefits to shifting your biases to be more positive slanted, because it's just more realistic. You find more upsides. You can see more opportunities. Like positivity is like the foundation of things like entrepreneurship and accurately assessing risk to reward of all kinds of things, not just entrepreneurship, all kinds of things. You cannot accurately assess risk and reward without fighting back against the negative bias by installing some positive ones. So,
Absolutely. And it's a habit. Like, you can shift this in yourself. Positive thinking is not something that is, I mean, I think we're all through our upbringing or genetics or whatever, I don't know, wherever it comes from, we all lean one way or the other, right? Like, some people are more negative, some people are more positive. Obviously, it has a lot to do with your mood, etc. But this is, from my experience, a trainable skill that you can do, and you do it through repetition. You do it by becoming aware of your thoughts, and you do it then by reframing those thoughts towards the positive way. And this is something that I have two kids, and this is something that I try to stress on them. And one story that always stands out to me on this is the tale of two wolves, or whatever you call it, which is like I believe it's just like a Native American story about, there's two wolves. There's a good wolf and there's a bad wolf, and they're hungry, right? They're both looking for something, and whichever one you feed is going to come back, right? So you don't want to feed the negative wolf. You don't want to do it because that negative wolf is just going to keep coming back. You want to feed the good wolf, the positive wolf. Um, my accent coming out when I say wolf? I'm originally from Minnesota, and there's some vowels that I'm saying I'm saying wolf, and I'm like, yeah, that's not how you say wolf, is it?
This
Um,
is the first time. This is the first time I've noticed the accent, and
it
in
comes
like
out, yeah,
hours of recording, and this is the first time I've noticed it. It made me grin.
yeah. There's some words that get me. That's one of them. But I did this with my kids. Like I printed out two pictures of wolves. I don't know if I said it right. I won't worry about it. Wolves, and put them on the wall, and like I had little treats that they could give them. And every time they said something negative, I'd be like, "You just fed that negative wolf. Go give that negative wolf a treat." And then, of course, we're trying to feed the positive one. But this is the way I like to frame positive thinking: is just keep feeding the good wolf.
Yeah, yeah. I like my girlfriend has a poster up that is this actual Native American parable, and like it's like prominent. It's like right to the right of the TV, and it's like you see it all the time. You walk in, you see it, and I love that. I love the parable. It is one of the ways that you can frame it that's very tangible. Like you can imagine, like, because everyone had like a lot of people have pet dogs, and it's so relatable because you don't give the dog a treat when it's snarling at you. You know, you give it a treat when it's like doing the positive stuff, and you could treat yourself the same way, and it's super good to do that. It makes a huge difference. Makes a huge difference.
Step three, which you touched on a little bit already, which is r- avoiding delusion. So yes, we want to be positive. We want to play into our confirmation bias. There's also a lot of stories of people out there who are so delusional and so full of themselves, and their ego is so big or whatever it may be, that they lead themselves to complete disaster. And that is, of course, not what you want to do. You want to find the boundary between optimism and delusion. And there's a few ways you can do that. Um, One is just having good people around you, right? Um, if you are already delusional, it may be hard to get good people around you. You see this all the time with like celebrities, right? Like, not to hate on the yay Kanye West, but like I think this is something that people say a lot about Kanye, right? Like you have all these yes people around you, and oh, you're so great, you're such a creative genius, which like we don't have to deep dive on Kanye West and how
We
great he
don't
is
have
or
to
not
have
great.
opinions
Yeah,
on that.
but like this echo chamber around you can amplify delusion, um and you want to avoid that. You want to have people around you who will be give you authentic advice. You can do this through mentors, you can do this through coaches or whatever it may be, but you gotta stay grounded because your positivity can run away and become delusion very quickly.
Yeah, I think that it's almost niche people who get delusional about things. It's not common. I don't think it's got that common, honestly. Like because the people will come in and correct you if you're being delusional. And if people don't directly come in and correct you, uh, you're just not going to find the success, and then you're going to have to pivot. Um, that's just how I've seen things play out over time with various different people who have been delusional. They don't stay delusional for long unless they have like an incredible amount of echo chamber cult following. But like if someone's really trying to like up level their life and they're doing all of these things that are highly optimistic and cross over the delusion line, the people that are in the group of success just above them, they'll bat them down. It's not. It's just. I think it's a niche problem. There's a such thing as like being so biased that you're not able to see the world correctly, and then you just end up doing a whole bunch of dumb things, and no one's correcting you. The world's not correcting you, but it's just. I think it's hard to stay there. You've got to have like some really deep set delusional stuff in order to stay there. So, but yeah, like I think that optimal optimism And delusion is where you're just jumping just across the line. You go over to slight delusion, and then you pop back over, and then you might drop a little bit below optimism, and then you come back, and then you're just skirting the line. Because anytime you want to do something big, complex, or different, you need to take a different tack than everyone else. And part of that is actually you have to have enough delusion to go and do something hard, because it's so easy to decide not to do anything. So easy. That's where most people are. Average person, 80% plus of people, they just do the things that they're told. They do the things that are socially acceptable, and they don't change. If you want to do something more or have a lived experience that's better than that 80% of people, which is, I think, a very good goal to have. You want to be better than live. Most people aren't super happy. They're not that well. Like there's like a bunch of, mental disorders and stuff, and I like, I'm not going to get super into it, but I feel like most of that is correctable without using drugs. Um, but they just let their biases run away. They end up like having those subpar results, and like controlling your biases and like building in these systems and reality checks, and having the optimism, slight delusion come back. It's I think it's a part of a natural cycle for anybody who wants more than what is average.
This is the crux of this whole conversation, I feel like, because it is such a balancing act. Because on the flip side of like people overhyping you up or like playing into delusion, it's probably the bigger risk is probably people pulling you down. And whether that's through jealousy or whatever it is, like usually it's saying more about them than it is about you if somebody's putting you down. But like, everybody's going to try to crush your dreams, but you don't want you don't want dreams that are so crazy that it's not possible too. But where is that line? It's impossible. It's so hard to know. Like as it's like the anytime something seems impossible, somebody does it, and then everybody follows because it's like this breakthrough, and now it's this possible thing, and that all had to do with the idea. At least one component of that is having the idea that, oh, it's possible, I can do this. So if everybody is saying that's not possible, it's not possible, it's not possible, you might not pursue it, and you might be destined to fail. So you want to avoid delusion on both sides. Don't delude yourself that something isn't possible, and don't delude yourself that something is possible. And I would skew more towards, like, with the positive thinking, like, go ahead and get a little crazy. Like I posted this on X, tweeted it, whatever, and I think it's like my like number two tweet I've ever done. It was dumb enough to try, smart enough to learn. And I think that like sums it up to me, is like you got to be a little, like, I could have said positive enough to try, but like sometimes being a little bit dumb, a little bit naive, like actually works to your benefit. Believing that you can do something that is really hard to do, but learn from it. Like if you fail, then just learn from it. And that's like riding that line back and forth between delusion and positivity.
You have to cross the line. You don't have a choice. You have to cross the line, or else you'll never find it. Like, I think that people should feed their delusion and then take a step back, and then feed the delusion and then take a step back, because most of the time what you consider to be a delusion is probably closer to just optimism. Because everybody does, like, it's very rare that you run across people who are truly optimistic that do not install the optimism themselves. Right? So like with that, just you have to build in those checks. And I think that part of that is building in checks that are at a like a self-reflection level every so often. Like I probably do that once a month. I don't do it as frequently as some other people do, but I think once a month, like just sitting and evaluating what I've done and what I haven't. Did I stretch myself? Like I need to make sure that I'm stretching myself in like whatever I'm trying to do. Do things that I think I probably don't deserve to succeed at, and see what happens. Like it's a huge part of like anything that's a different result than what everyone else is getting, you have to do things other people aren't willing to do. And that includes things that are soft, like lived experience and wellness. You need to do things that other people aren't willing to do. You need to think ways that people aren't willing to think. And then you check yourself. You have something written down. Check yourself before you wreck yourself. Yeah, do that every so often. You have to. But
Yeah, I don't know who came up with that quote. I don't know if it
I love
was
it though.
whoever did
Yeah.
it. I don't know if it's Buddha, Einstein. I don't know. I have no idea, but whoever
I'm just
whoever did it.
imagining. I'm imagining Buddha saying that, and I just don't think it's Buddha.
I doubt it, but it may as well be.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I like the other thing that just randomly came to mind. It's like there's just such two polarities here. There's the check yourself before you wreck yourself, and then there's, which I think maybe I'm misinterpreting this quote, but I think I see this one on both sides too, which is I guess I won't drop an F bomb because that's whatever, I don't know. F around and find out, right? Like that's a very common thing, and I think people say that as a negative thing, is like, F around and you'll find out, like feedback will come back to you. But it's also like a positive thing, like F around and find out, like you may find out that you're actually capable of doing it. um so go ahead, like check yourself, but go ahead and F around a bit too.
Yeah,
Words of
I
wisdom.
think yeah, I think so. I think so. I think that that's the thing. You need to have enough like harnessing of your biases to understand what's actually going on, acknowledge your biases, um, shift your biases so that you can have more positive thinking and see the world a little bit more as what it is instead of the negative slant that everyone else has. So you have to do that. There's a lot of benefits to being positive. Check out the other episode that's about like more practical positivity. Um, Keep in mind the good wolf, bad wolf thing. That's super helpful as a frame. Like, what am I feeding right now with what I'm doing and what I'm saying? Like, what is my self talk? What do other people say? You need to understand these things. Play with the line of delusion versus optimism. You're most likely not going to become deluded and stay there. That's really unlikely because we have the negative bias we're fighting. Most of the time, it's just optimism, enough optimism to try things. People will think it's delusion. It's not usually. So, yeah, build in some checks to make sure that you don't go off into delusionville and stay there. But yeah, like go out and try things. If you want different results, if you want a better lived experience, you have to become aware of your biases and tweak them to make your lived experiences, your productivity, whatever it is, better.
Take vacation in delusion land, just don't live there. That's what I'm taking away
I
here.
like it. Yeah, that's the only time you can do a timeshare.
Yeah. Also words of wisdom. Awesome. That was an excellent
Yeah.
summary. Some really good stuff there. That was fun.
Yeah.
I
Awesome.
think we
Try
wrap
this
it up.
out, guys.
Yeah.
Try this out, guys. And we appreciate you listening. If you're watching us on YouTube, I think that might be, yeah, hit like. We appreciate it. We enjoy giving you value. Just hit the little thumbs up. We appreciate you. We'll see you next time.
Bye, everybody.